welcome to In the Corner, the place where every cricketer wants to be. I'm your host, Callum, and thank you so much for tuning into today's episode. Joining me to talk about the recent Test series between Australia and New Zealand is Rees Williams. Rees, how are you, mate?
Good, thanks, Callum. Thanks for having me back again.
Yeah, it's always good to have you in the Cordon, mate. Lots of good discussions going to be taking place in the Cordon tonight. Rees, Australia got over the line against New Zealand in this series, and we both predicted that Australia would win this series 2-0. However, it was a lot closer than that, and I don't think Australia played anywhere near their best, but they were still able to get the job done. And I suppose it showcases some of the standout performances for Australia that were able to get them over the line. We'll talk about Cameron Green, 174 in the first game, talk about Nathan Lyon taking a few wickets in that first game as well. But in this second test match in particular, the knocks of Mitchell Marsh and Alex Carey, who were both under pressure after some low scores, were able to see Australia home. And from a New Zealand point of view, I think Glenn Phillips was a shining light, and Matt Henry with the ball as well was the player of the series, and deservedly so with 17 wickets in 2 games. What did you make of the series overall?
Yeah, no, it was a good series. It was about as close as I thought it would be. We predicted Australia would win 2-0, but we did say it would be pretty close, and I think that's exactly what happened there. Like Australia got saved in a couple of special performances throughout the series, but apart from that, I think it was pretty well closer than what 2-0 would have suggested.
Yeah, absolutely. And I suppose there's a few talking points coming out of this series. And I suppose the biggest one would be Steve Smith and whether Australia choose to stick with this opening experiment, I suppose. And for me, I don't think he can open in the Test series against India that's, coming at the end of the year. And I just think the Indian seamers in Jasprit Bumrah, Mohammad Siraj, Mohammad Shami, and you look at some of the young blokes that they've got, they're serious bowlers. They can bowl over 140 clicks. And, the fact that Smith was getting LBW so much in this series is quite a concern. And I know the wickets in New Zealand were quite challenging. They're new ball wickets. It's the toughest time to bat in New Zealand. And you've got quality bowlers, the likes of Tim Southey and Matt Henry. But yeah, I just don't think he can do it. I don't think it's the right situation for Australia. And, to me, Uzi Khawaja looked a little bit off the pace as well in this particular series. And, if Australia don't treat this situation carefully, we could have two openers retire in a very short space of time. And then you're looking to throw two younger blokes back into the fold. What did you make of Smith? Because you and I talked about this a lot over Messenger, and you've got some pretty strong thoughts on it.
Yeah, I said before the start of the series that I still didn't think he was the right man for the job, and that series has changed none of that whatsoever. Like I've said off air, I think he needs a lot of time in the Shields season at the start of next summer to prove himself as an opener. I think because I still don't believe he's the right man for the job for the Indian series coming up and any series going forward. To be totally honest, so. What should happen from here is he should be made to go prove himself as an opener at Shield level before the next Test series. But whether that actually happens or not will remain to be seen. But yeah, this series has done nothing to change my thoughts on Smith as an opener, unfortunately.
Yeah, Reese, it will be interesting to see what happens with Steve Smith. There's been a lot of talk about his place in the T20 World Cup. I personally don't think he'll go. I think Matt Short will probably take that spare batting spot ahead of him. But do you think it's a good opportunity for Smith to potentially go and play some county cricket and, forge his way into the side as a proper opener?
Yeah, absolutely. Like he didn't get picked up at all in the IPL as well. So to not be playing IPL as well as most likely not being picked in the T20 World Cup squad, I think it's a perfect opportunity for him to go over and play a season of county cricket and work on his craft over there. Like I feel like the more chances he gets to open a batting in red ball cricket, he should be taking with both hands. So whether he does it or not, it's up to him and how he feels like his best way to manage. But that's personally what I'd be doing if I was in his shoes.
Yeah, you and I have been pretty critical of the boys club sort of mentality this Australian team seems to have. And I think it's harder to get out of the side than it is to get in the side at this present time. And, we were very much in favour of Mitchell Marsh getting first opportunity at the start of the Australian summer due to his, fantastic performances in England, and he deserved that spot. And I obviously understand why they want to get someone of Cameron Green's talent into that side. And I think he's a long-term player for Australia, but I don't think that this changing of the order experiment is going to be sustainable long term. But I think it just highlights there's so many cracks and fragile batting in this Australian side at the moment. I know Marnus hit a 90 in the first innings at Christchurch, and I thought he looked really solid in that innings. But in all the other innings he played, he looked very scratchy. He just looked nervous and tentative at the crease. I think he just needs to bring the energy when he bats, bring back the no run and the ridiculous lightsaber leaves and all that sort of stuff. Because I feel like that's really been missing from his batting. Travis Head is horrifically out of form, and you and I both want Trav to go well as South Australians. And Alex Carey, up until this 98 not out, looked extremely scratchy. I was really disappointed with the way he got out in the first innings, but the fact he was able to respond. So Australia's been lucky that Cameron Green, Alex Carey and Mitchell Marsh in this particular innings were, able to dig Australia out of trouble. But it certainly, and we talked about this throughout the summer, there's certainly a lot of cracks in this Australian batting lineup, would you say?
Yeah, I completely agree. I also agree with your thoughts on Marnus's particular moment. He needs to just be more positive at the crease. He just looks someone that is nervous. He's just batting to survive rather than scoring runs. So he needs to bring back all his weird, quirky things that he's used to do, like your exaggerated leaves and yelling out no runs. I think because I feel like that helps him. It gets him in the game. Whereas at the moment he's just nowhere. Like he scored a 90 before and looked pretty good, but up until then, he's had a pretty extended run where he wasn't doing too well. So he should look to do that again. But yeah, in regards to guys like Travis Head as well, like we all know how he plays, it either comes off or it doesn't. Like if it comes off, it looks awesome, but when it doesn't, it looks pretty ordinary. But I don't reckon he's in any trouble whatsoever because it's just how he plays. It'll come off at one point next summer, and we'll be looking back at this and going, "Oh, what's the problem?" But yeah, I think Trav probably needs a big summer next year for sure. But yeah, there's certainly some cracks in this batting lineup that do need to be worked out before the Indian series next summer.
Yeah, and let's talk about some of the more positive things from the series. It was great to see Alex Carey respond with 98 not out. I think that's the best knock that he's had for Australia since he's come into this particular test team. I know he scored 100 at the MCG against a pretty lackluster South African lineup a bit over 12 months ago, but he looked calm at the crease. He played the ball a bit later than I've seen. I think that's one of the things that I've noticed throughout the series. He's always been keen to play the ball early, and in New Zealand, with those more seeming like conditions, if you're able to let the ball come, and that's one of the reasons that Kane Williamson has succeeded so much in New Zealand conditions. He plays the ball really late, plays it under the eye line, and he's able to, score a lot of runs to third man, and that's something that we did see Carey do a lot of today. What's your thoughts about the Australian keeper?
Yeah, he was his best test knock by far. Like he was he came in at a really difficult position as well. With going 5 down, we still needed quite a few runs to get. So he was critical that he made some runs today, and he silenced a few critics as well with that innings. He's under a bit of pressure because he hadn't made some runs, which was ridiculous. He's by far our best keeper, and he had to play. And then I've always been of the thought that any runs from your keeper is a bonus, but our top 6 just hasn't done anything, so he's had to make runs. But on this occasion, he has. So hopefully that silenced a few critics of his. But yeah, he played seriously well and was very unlucky not to get 100, which he thoroughly would have deserved.
Yeah, well, I don't know whether we call it a selfish move from Pat Cummins to punch that ball through cover point.
I am.
I was pretty disappointed to not see Carey get the 100 there. I know he's said all the right things and saying, "Oh, I'm happy the game was over with," but I think he really
He's
desperately.
secretly fuming.
Oh,
He's secretly
I,
fuming.
I would be spuming as well. And well, out of the two of us, you're the only one to get to three figures. So you
Blood,
know
it's a
the
bloody good
joys of
feeling.
that. But another man who was seriously under pressure coming into this series was Cameron Green, and he was the difference in the first Test match. I think, as we've talked about, there's been individual moments of brilliance for Australia that's been able to get them over the line. And in the first Test, Australia looked really shaky at about 84. Oh, sorry, 4 for 80 odd in that first innings, but the way that Green was able to bat with Hazelwood at the end, that's a serious knock, and you won't find too many better Test hundreds than that. And the fact that he was able to bat with Hazelwood for over 2.5 hours is just such an extraordinary 10th wicket partnership. Nothing will be as great as Ashton Agar and Phil Hughes, all those years ago. But yeah, that was a serious partnership. What do you make about Greenie?
Yeah,
Yeah, I was really happy for.
I was really
I was
happy
really
for
happy for
Greeny
Greenie
there
there.
because we all had criticism beforehand of his spot at number 4, if myself included. I was a big critic of that early, but like I said before the series started, the preview, he made 100 in the Shield, and I was hoping he'd get some confidence from that, and then to come and peel off 174, I think it was, and to bat with Hazelwood at the end there for such a long time. It was massive credit, and credit where credit's due. So I'll have to give him that. After, if I'm going to pod him when he's not doing well, I have to give him kudos when he does well. So I was really happy for him when he peeled those runs off, and it was the difference in the end. I think his innings was the margin in the end of that game. So he was huge, and even with other knocks throughout the series as well. So that's one big positive from the series is Cam Green finding his feet, and hopefully that's a sign of things to come.
Yeah, it would be interesting to see whether they do decide to go with a different opening combination against India, how that Australian batting lineup looks. But I think the fact that there's such a long break between this game and the start of the first Test match against India, I think in December, I'm pretty sure. So
Late November, late
oh,
November.
late November. So, the fact that there's about, 8, 9 months between
Yeah.
games, gives a few guys a chance to recharge the battery. And once again, it's a big year in 2024 T20 World Cup coming up as well. So a lot of emphasis will be made on that. But I think this series, in a way, has made me more nervous as an Australian fan with India coming here. And I genuinely think India will get us again. I just think the fact their depth is so unbelievable, and we'll have a review of the fifth Test match between India and England out shortly on the channel. So make sure you stay tuned for that. But the fact that India, if someone gets injured, someone can immediately come up, take their place, and look the goods. Patakal, Safras Khan, Jaswal looks unbelievable. Shubman Gill's hit a couple of hundreds in this series. The captain, Rohit Sharma, has found his feet, I think 200s in the series as well, after being under some serious pressure. And the fact that Virat Kohli is still due to come back into this lineup is a scary proposition for Australia. Rishabh Pant's probably going to be back playing for India by the end of the year as well. And the three quicks that they've got are pretty serious players. So I genuinely think that Australia needs to have a really good hard look at themselves over this extended period. Otherwise, India is going to make it 3 series in a row on Australian soil. Your thoughts on that, mate?
Yeah, I was just about to say that they're coming down for their potential third series win in a row here. So pressure's right on Australia here. So we need to really get it right. And that's why I reckon it's a big winter for those that are going to go play red ball cricket over in the county scene and the start of the Shield summer, because we'll get what, 4, maybe 5 rounds in typically before the start of the first Test. So I feel like there's spots up for grabs for sure. So it's going to be a big winter and early summer before that series starts. That's for sure.
Yeah, couldn't agree with you more. We'll certainly have coverage of India and Australia when that test series rolls around, and there'll be a big emphasis on the channel. So make sure you stay tuned in for that. Let's talk about New Zealand. I think one of the great things about this series has been Matt Henry, and I found it really hard to believe that he hasn't got a consistent crack in the side. However, Trent Bolt choosing to step away from, the red ball game and focus on T20 cricket has certainly provided an opportunity for Matt Henry over the last sort of 12 to 18 months. And he was the danger man. He was the man who Tim Southee always turned to get a wicket. And, 17 wickets in a 2 Test match series is a phenomenal achievement, and was rightfully named man of the series. I thought he was absolutely outstanding. And I thought his shape on the ball as well was terrific. He looked extremely dangerous to the right-hander swinging the ball away, but just getting that ball to hoop back. And I think at the first day of the series where he bowled Usman Khawaja. So what were some of the things that made Matt Henry really dangerous in this series, Reese?
Oh, he had the X factor in that attack, didn't he? He just had the bit of extra pace that the likes of Salvi and the other frontline bowlers just didn't have. So, and like you said before, Salvi turned to him when he needed a wicket, and yeah, he was just by far the one that looked most likely. So when he was on, things generally happened. So he was just one of those bowlers that did really well for them. And yeah, like you said, he was rightfully man of the series because, yeah, 17 wickets in the 2 Test series is pretty phenomenal.
Oh, absolutely. And the other one who I think surprised a lot of people in an all-round capacity was Glenn Phillips. And we've always known that he's been a dangerous batsman. We've seen what he's been able to do on the T20 circuits. But the fact that he's now almost forging his way into this New Zealand side as a frontline spinner. And he's only started bowling off spin for about the last 3 years. So the fact that he's taken a 5-wicket haul, he took some wickets in Bangladesh on some turning wickets as well. I feel like it's a really positive sign for New Zealand. And the fact that he's able to contribute in all three facets of the game, batting, bowling, and fielding. His fielding is spectacular, by the way. That catch that he took at Gully was unreal. What did you make of GP in this series?
Yeah, he had a very good series. He took that fifer in the first Test, as you mentioned. It really changed that innings actually, because Australia were going along pretty well, and he's come on to bowl and he's taken 5 pretty quick ones. So he's certainly worked on his off spin a lot the last couple of years, and it's certainly improved. Like, he's certainly turning into a frontline spin option for them, as well as his fielding as well. Like, that catch to dismiss Marnus was just ridiculous. Like, 99% of blokes aren't catching that. So, and that was also a turning point as well. So he's got a great all-round series as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the more that he gets to play in this New Zealand setup, I think the higher he'll go up the order. I think 7's too low for someone of his talent. We look at the likes of Rachin Ravindra and Daryl Mitchell as well. Both of those blokes have really elevated their games in international cricket. And, I think one of the things that Australia was able to do really well in this series was keep Kane Williamson quiet, dismissed cheaply on 2 occasions in the first Test match. Unfortunately, bumped into Will Young as Marnus got a direct hit. And then caught it leg slip as well from Nathan Lyon. The fact that he was only able to score 150 in this series, Australia would have absolutely taken that. Because he's by far the most important player for New Zealand. So, I know Australia won this series 2-0, but I still feel like there's a lot of positive signs for New Zealand. As we said, Ravindra, 250s in the series as well. And we talk
One
about...
one bloke you haven't mentioned at all this series is I like the look of Ben Sears for his first game. In the second Test, I liked how he went about it as well. I feel like we should definitely have mentioned him at some point.
Yeah, I certainly like the look of young Sears, and I thought he bowled with really good pace. He bowled with really good aggression as well. I do think that Tim Southee at points in this particular Test match gave him some really tricky fields to bowl to on debut, a lot of in-out fields. And, when you're just trying to find your feet in your first game, it's a pretty hard thing to do. But the fact that he was able to take 4 wickets, and Australia were were cruising. Mitchell Marsh and Alex Carey looked like they were going to get Australia home pretty comfortably, but he took those 2 wickets and 2 balls, and I was thinking, oh, is this another Brisbane? As well as watching this morning. So, yeah, the fact that New Zealand's got some good stocks in the pace bowling department. Jameson's not around for the next sort of 6 or so months with a back stress fracture, which is very unfortunate. But one of the things that I did question in this series is playing Scott Kugelheim. I think that the fact that New Zealand didn't have Trent Boult, I thought it was the perfect almost swan song farewell opportunity for Neil Wagner. And Wagner's actually got a pretty good record against Australia. I think we talked in the preview show before this series
yeah.
the last time that Wagner played against Australia, he took 17 wickets and was really able to unsettle a few Australian players, most notably Steve Smith, 4 times in 4 innings. But did you think that playing Kugelheim was a mistake? Because he only bowled 3 overs in this final innings.
Yeah, a bit of a mistake in hindsight there. I think I feel like someone like a Neil Wagner would have been perfect for these the last innings dig as well. Like to bowl 3 overs, he's basically non-existent there. And if he was picked as more of a bowling all rounder type, like he did definitely make some handy runs in that 3rd innings there for him. But he's there to bowl, and he didn't do a huge amount of it at all. So yeah, I feel like he's a bit of a mistake playing him in hindsight.
Yeah, I certainly think that Kugelheim's got potential to play for New Zealand more often. I would probably say that Ben Sears has gone ahead of him in the pecking order for future Test matches. But
absolutely,
I think Will O'Rourke is someone who also impressed in the first game as well, and I think he picked up a side strain in the first game, and that's why Sears was able to come into the team for this particular game. But yeah, he impressed against South Africa. I think New Zealand's got some good bowling stocks. I think Tim Southee's close to 35 now. So how long he's got left as the premier fast bowler is to be determined. And, I think Tim Southee, New Zealand cricket should look at transitioning the captaincy away from Tim Southee. And this is not anything against, Tim Southee's ability as a bowler, but I feel like
he was coming into pressure this Test for his captaincy.
Yeah, I felt like it's sort of the same problem that Australia's got with having Pat as captain. And I've obviously been pretty critical of Pat's captaincy at times in terms of tactics and things like that. But I think it more restricts New Zealand in terms of a selection point of view. Whenever they potentially go overseas and they might only want to play 2 quicks. For example, if Henry and you wanted to play Sears in a future game, you're basically knocking your best bowler from this series out in Matt Henry in order to play Tim Southee as your captain. So I do feel like that's something that New Zealand need to look at in the future. I obviously don't think Kane Williamson will be wanting to captain New Zealand in all 3 formats. So whether they look at a Tom Latham or a Devon Conway, as the captain going forward is to be determined. So, unfortunately, none of our predictions really paid off too well. I said Marnus is the top run scorer, and you said Travers the top run scorer. So both of those predictions went down the toilet. We did get the 2-0 series result prediction right, which was good. I went with Pat Cummins for leading wicket taker, and I think you went for Mitchell Starc. But one bloke that I do want to give a shout out to before we finish up is Josh Hazlewood. I thought he bowled really well in this series. I think
he's classy.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the fact that he's bowled 107 overs in 7 Test matches, which doesn't actually seem like a lot, 107 overs in 7 Test matches at an average of 7 with 27 wickets, just sums up how good this bloke is. And I think
that's
behind
lower grade bullying stats.
Yes, that's pretty much like Wes Agar going to play for the Northern Districts in grade cricket. So he's just such an important cog of this Australian attack. And I think he's obviously the second most important quick that we have. Pat's, just the things that Pat can do is phenomenal. So yeah, Australia need to obviously look after him over the next 18 months as we head into the India series and obviously the 25, 26 Ashes series as well. But what did you make of Hoff in this particular series, and what did you make of his summer overall?
Oh, he was just phenomenal. Like that spell he bowled in the first innings, the second test where he just took five for not many. It was just like bowling of the highest class, wasn't it? Like, and that's just what he's been doing his entire career. Like he's just putting on the spot, he's getting it to do just enough, and he's just gets snicking blokes off for fun. And his whole summer as well to play in 7 tests in a row, considering his injury history, that's also an amazing result as well. Like I don't think he's played that many consecutive tests full stop, let alone in the same summer. So he's doing really well to stay on top of his injuries and keeping the body fresh as well. So that's a great result from that, as well as yeah, he's just his formal summer. It's like you said, 26 wickets at 7. That's just like lower grade bullying type stats there. So he's just keeps doing the job year in, year out.
Absolutely. No wonder he's copped so many comparisons to Glenn McGrath over the year. And highlights of Josh Hazlewood's 5 for 31 are available on our Facebook and Instagram page. So make sure that you check that out and give it a likes. But Reese, just wanted to say a big thank you for jumping on in the Cordon, mate. It's always great to have you on the podcast.
No worries at all, anytime.
No worries. And thank you so much to those of you who are tuning into In the Cordon at home. Please make sure that you like and subscribe to all of our social media pages, and we'll see you in the next video. Cheers.